A rare mid-decade redistricting in Texas after pressure from the president.
It's a very simple redrawing. We pick up 5 seats.
Donald Trump, House Republicans here in Washington, and Governor Abbott are conspiring to rig the Texas congressional map.
How we got here, the end goal, and the pushback from lawmakers.
There's any solution other than to replace the people that failed us.
A former Kerr County worker takes us inside the warning system that he says went out too late. A better look at the alert timeline in the tragedy and promises for change from state leaders. And another chance to scrap the STAR test, the debate between chambers with the same goal but different ways of making it happen.
Produced from the Capitol in Austin and airing statewide, this is the award-winning State of Texas.
Hello and thank you for joining us. I'm Josh Hinkle. Tomorrow, state leaders return to the Capitol for a special session. Governor Greg Abbott laid out 18 agenda items. These are the only items lawmakers can address in this session. Today, we are focusing on 4 different agenda items. Redrawing the state's congressional maps, a move even some Republicans oppose, worried their own seats would be put in jeopardy with their new districts. After the deadly flood in the Hill Country, Governor Greg Abbott outlined 4 different items in the agenda. They include warning systems, emergency communications, relief funding, and streamlining regulations to help in recovery. Hemp-derived products, a priority for Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, makes its mark as well. That includes preventing anyone under 21 to access the product and regulating the industry. And lawmakers will again try to scrap the STAR test after it failed to pass in the final days of the regular session. Every 10 years after a census count, the state puts together the boundaries of electoral districts. It's supposed to equal out the population across the state. Depending on which district you live in determines who you vote for as your representative in Washington. If a state grows in population, they receive more House seats and lose them if enough people leave the state. The announcement of redistricting added to the agenda is connected to President Donald Trump's administration. So how did we get here? In 1965, the Voting Rights Act established a set of rules when drawing these lines, especially prohibiting those to be drawn along racial lines. Fast forward to 2021, after the census was delayed due to COVID, a 3rd special session was called to finally draw new districts. It ensured 2 new seats would go to Republicans, immediately challenged. It wouldn't see a trial until May of this year. At the same time, rumors emerged that President Donald Trump was pushing Texas Republicans to redraw the state's congressional maps in an effort to give the GOP an advantage in the 2026 midterms. But it wasn't until the Department of Justice sent a letter to the state saying 4 districts were unconstitutional, saying they were drawn with racial considerations in mind. 3 of them in Harris County, the 4th in Tarrant County. Soon after, Governor Greg Abbott would add redistricting on the agenda. President Donald Trump was asked about the process.
I think we get 5, and there could be some other states. We're going to get another 3 or 4 or 5 in addition. Texas would be the biggest one, and that'll be 5.
State Senator Sarah Eckhart is among the Democrats promising to be vocal in the process.
The idea of redistricting and further gerrymandering to get almost 80% Republican representation in a state that is nearly 50% Democratic, certainly we will look at all strategies available to us. I don't know what strategies will ultimately be deployed. It depends a lot on how this special goes.
Joining us today is Dr. Brian Smith, political science professor at St. Edward's University. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
So can you break down with the DOJ came to the conclusion that the 4 districts were seen as unconstitutional? What does that mean?
Well, when we redistrict, there's very specific laws about what you can and cannot do, and it all stems from the Constitution and the Voting Rights Act. And most recently, what they've ruled is you cannot take several minority groups, historically underrepresented groups, and create what's called a coalition district in order to elect a representative. And that's what they said Texas has done. And that is not allowed by the Voting Rights Act and the Constitution, such that these districts are now unconstitutional. Historically, Texas would have challenged it if it was a Democratic ruling, but they're going to abide by the ruling and redistrict.
Why are Republicans worried about this process?
Republicans are worried about this process because the optics don't look good. President Trump said, I need to get more seats. He only has 2 to spare in the midterms. And he said, I want 5 more seats. And now it looks like the Republicans are going to redistrict to do what the president wants. Also, it creates uncertainty. A lot of the districts in Texas are very safe Republican seats. If they're going to carve out more safe Republican seats, it means you have to make the existing seats weaker. So those incumbents are very, very worried.
Do lawmakers have any way of pushing back against this?
Well, for the Republicans who don't like it, they can slow walk it through the special session, meaning all the pinch points in a regular session are still there. So there's that possibility. For the Democrats, they don't have a lot of options within the legislative system, meaning if the Republicans are unified, want to redistrict, they're going to redistrict. So what the Democrats have is on the back end. When the maps are drawn, then they can sue again under the Voting Rights Act, under the Constitution, saying the new districts are unconstitutional because they violate one of the many provisions, most likely that they dilute or disenfranchise historically underrepresented minorities. So there's that option. Also, what they have is a campaign issue. In 2026, they can say, look what your legislators are doing. Very partisan stuff, and now this is not who we want. We want an independent Texas, not one that responds to what the president demands.
So could lawmakers potentially get this done in a 30-day special session, because they've got a lot of other issues to talk about?
They can get it done because the lawmakers aren't the ones with the big old map of Texas drawing the lines. That's being done for them. What they'll do, a map will be presented that they didn't draw, and they'll vote to approve it or not.
All right, Dr. Smith, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
If Texas is able to flip and offer safe access to users, that is a great omen for the future of cannabis in the federal world as well.
An 11th hour veto from Governor Greg Abbott kept THC products from being banned in Texas. But regulations are on the agenda, the governor's approach to the multi-billion-dollar industry.